You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
Mitch McConnell, one of the greatest villains in U.S. history. Republican analysis, based on an article by Nick Heldon. Mitch McConnell didn't break the Senate by accident. A crisis of candor, not just health. The immediate story is simple enough. Mitch McConnell was hospitalized. Rumors swirled about his condition, and Republicans around him offered polished assurances that did not match the seriousness of what was being described. Steve Schmidt's point is not that the public deserves gossip. It is that political power comes with the duty to stop hiding behind managed statements when the officeholder in question is one of the most powerful people in the country. That's the surface. The deeper story is the familiar one. The party that spent years normalizing dishonesty about elections now wants trust for its own bedside messaging. That credibility gap is not an accident. It is the product of repeated institutional lying. The real subject is power. McConnell is being discussed as though the central issue is his health or his personality. That is a diversion. The real issue is the architecture of power he helped build and then use. Schmidt's attack lands because it names the actual damage. McConnell made the Senate less functional, less deliberative, and more openly transactional. That is not a side effect. It is the method. When an institution is turned into a battlefield where procedure matters only as long as it serves one faction, the institution does not remain neutral. It becomes a weaponized shell. The Garland-Barrett bargain was the tell. The clearest evidence is still the Senate's double standard on Supreme Court power. McConnell blocked Merrick Garland from even getting a hearing, then rushed Amy Coney Barrett through weeks before a presidential election. That was not a nuanced constitutional theory. It was raw force dressed up as principle when convenient and discarded when not. This is why so many Americans concluded there were no rules at all, only power. And once that lesson is taught from the top of the Senate, it does not stay contained in one nomination fight. It bleeds into every expectation about law, legitimacy, and restraint. The Democrats' failure was not the point. Schmidt is right to blame McConnell for the wreckage, but the larger lesson is broader than one Republican operator's confession. McConnell could do what he did because the Senate was already built to reward obstruction, minority rule, and procedural sabotage. Democrats have often responded to that reality with caution, reverence, and a tragic fondness for institutions that are actively being hollowed out. That is not balance. That is accommodation. When one party weaponizes the chamber and the other treats the chamber as sacred even while it is being gutted, the institution belongs to the saboteur. Trump was the test he failed. McConnell reportedly understood Donald Trump's character better than most Republicans. That part matters because it strips away the excuse that he was confused, trapped, or naive. He knew what Trump was. He warned about him. Then, when the defining confrontation arrived, he chose accommodation over confrontation. That choice is the pattern. Republican elites have made a career out of recognizing the danger after the damage is already locked in. They perform alarm when it costs them nothing, then enable the very forces they claim to fear when power is on the line. The verdict is institutional, not personal. McConnell's legacy is not just that he was ruthless. It is that he helped teach American politics to confuse ruthlessness with governance. He leaves behind a weaker Senate, a more suspect judiciary, and a political culture where power is treated as an end in itself. That is the real inheritance. The larger lesson is ugly, but clear. When democratic institutions are run by people who see rules as temporary restraints rather than shared commitments, the institution does not merely bend. It becomes a device for concentrated, anti-democratic control. McConnell did not just exploit that logic. He made it respectable. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Alternet for today's article. With the automated voice of Kuzil, thanks for listening.